Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to the second hour of LoveBabz, LoveTalk. I'm delighted this morning because I'm talking to the folks who have created a new musical called Shimmer. So let me tell you who's up. Y'all unmute yourselves so we can get into this conversation. So I've got Pulitzer Prize winning composer and Shimmer librettist Anthony Davis. Good morning, Mr. Davis. You're like the third Anthony Davis I know in my life. And then Guggenheim Fellow playwright and Shimmer author, Sarah Schulman. Good morning, Sarah.
Hey, hi.
And CEO Midnight Oil Collective, Francis Pollock. So, all right. So, what did y'all do? Walk into a bar and say, you know what? You know what we should do? We should make a musical, a social justice musical with all the parts. And then we're going to set it back in like the early pre-60s civil rights. And then we're going to push it toward today, and then we're gonna add music. So tell me how did y'all come up with this, and how long did it take y'all to come together and create this body of work?
Well, while Anthony is unmuting, I'll start. So I wrote a novel called Shimmer that came out in 1998. And Anthony and I and the lyricist Michael Corey all met at the MacDowell Colony, which is an incredible place that supports artists. And, Anthony and Michael and I were talking, and he had a really personal connection to the Blacklist. Tony, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, my father was he was involved in and on the Blacklist in the 50s, and he was the first Black professor at Princeton University, and then he had to leave Princeton, went to Penn State. And he had to testify at Remington's trial, who was arrested as a spy. And so we had a lot of growing up. I had a lot of interaction with knowing about what was going on in the political world,
So the idea of Shimmer is to look back at this classic American period, New York City, right after World War II. It's the American dream, and all this propaganda about all this opportunity, but that was only true for some people. And our two protagonists, a Black playwright named Cal and a white gay writer named Sylvia, they're trying to get the American dream too, but they can't get it. And the Blacklist is coming down. And what it really reveals is that there's two kinds of blacklists. There's once you get into the system, then you get kicked out. There's that blacklist for your ideology and your beliefs. And then there's the people who can never get into the system in the first place because who they are, what they represent is so unacceptable. So that is the framework of this. And we've worked on this musical now for 20 years.
Oh my God.
20 years, yeah.
I knew it was a long time, but I wasn't quite sure 20 years. So
we faced a lot of opposition.
Sarah, did you always know it was going to be a musical, or when did the music get added?
From the beginning.
From the beginning,
okay.
Yeah. And in the music, I tried to capture a little bit of the time period, like 1947, late 40s music, that sort of beginning of R&B, and also, the kind of jazz era. So everything from Ellington and Strayhorn to emergence of stars like Nat King Cole, and then going into early R&B. So the music has that kind of flavor. In a way, it's kind of a variation. All these variations on the blues. Yeah, wow. Everyone sings their own blues in different ways.
I mean, part of the opposition that we faced to this project has a lot to do with the fact that Tony's music is real music. It's not pop music. It's not pastiche. And, the theater has been divided into these false categories of Black musical and white musical. And this is neither and both. And also, we don't have a white male protagonist. Plus, we have adult lesbian content, which is something that the theater has repressed forever. They're just not permissible. So all these factors have made it so hard for us to break through. And the only reason we could get this workshop at Yale is because of this new entity Midnight Oil Collective. It's run by 2 young women there who are helping us bring this music forward finally.
So,
Yes.
Francis, talk about the Midnight Oil
Collective.
Collective.
Yeah, so Midnight Oil Collective, I'm a composer who has also tried to mount work throughout the years. And a lot of the work that I'm particularly drawn to is work that is daring and edgy and is really going to speak to today and the things that people really care about. And after, you know, being in the industry for 15 years and just seeing that none of the really nuanced, like very dynamic new work was getting an opportunity, I wanted to create a space in which artists could advocate for their best work. And this was the work that was oftentimes just sort of being passed over by studios and people who were greenlighting projects because it wasn't coming from the artists themselves. It was always coming from other people with other agendas. And so the Midnight Oil Collective is a collective of artists that are coming together, bringing their best, most daring, most dynamic work and raising our own money to fund the projects. And, you know, when we're talking about funding a musical like Shimmer, something that is ultimately kind of pre-Broadway and headed in like this really like down this big projection, you're talking about having to raise money in the millions of dollars. And it's great because by coming together, even if like, you know, certain pieces aren't for everyone, the idea of collectivizing and raising money across a portfolio of diverse projects allows us to be more risky and be more dynamic and be like more fully our artistic selves.
So Sarah, this took 20 years. Sarah and Anthony, it took 20 years. And do you think it's ready now? I mean, do you think the world is ready for the telling of this story?
Well, even 20 years later, we're still ahead of the curve. But there is a recognition now that there's other people in the world besides white men, and that our stories are the classic and emblematic American stories. So we're hoping that this will open the doors for us a little bit.
And also,
Anthony,
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, you created music. You created music for this because music is so much a part of everybody's soundtrack, right? And
Exactly.
so a musical just makes sense because a music can tell can round out a story in ways that just dialogue can't.
Right, and also creates time and place. It's kind of form of time travel, but also, you know, I think that this piece is really interesting because we're now going through a phase, well, political phase with, you know, people like DeSantis and Trump, that, you know, the idea of the Red Scare, you know, when people were harassed for their points of view and the harassment we see in Florida, for example. I mean, it's very real. It's a story that was pertinent about 1947, the late 40s. We see those same threats today, and so that the world has come around to the fact that, you know, we confront some of the same obstacles and the same forces today that they had to confront then.
So does that make this play timely? Like, did you want it to feel timely? Did you want it to feel like, although we're talking about 1950s, we're really talking about 2023? Did you intend for that to be the vibe?
Yeah, definitely. You know, and because I think, and for me, there's this nostalgic element is that what I'm hearing in my head, and I think we all hear, I'm hearing the music of my parents in my head, you know, when I was writing this piece. And so it was kind of reflecting on the music of my parents, what I heard growing up. And then also, they're also thinking about the political situation today, you know, band, where you see books banned, you know, and you see, and people being excluded, you know. I think this musical has a lot to say about that.
So Sarah, you wrote this book called Shimmer, which you know probably would be absolutely on the banned list, probably at the top of the banned list.
Well, you know, there's 2 kinds of banned books, right? There's books that get published and have enough juice behind them for the other people to notice them, to ban them. And then there's the books that never get published that are excluded from publication in the first place. So there's always like elite censorship, and then there's like systemic censorship. You know, one of the things we say about Shimmer is some people get on the blacklist, some people are black. You know, and that this is a real dichotomy.
So tell me about the title.
Well, it's all about New York in the 40s, you know, like I'm sure you've seen those images of Times Square with all the marquees and all the neon. And there's a shimmer to New York City, you know, so people still come to New York to make their dreams come true. You know, now they have to step over the rats to do it, but it's still a place of incredible potential, and people with ideas come there and they're willing to go through the hardships of living there because they're driven by something bigger.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the workshop process, because the intent is to take this to Broadway.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I want to jump in and speak to this. One of the best parts of doing work with entities like Yale and like with community partners like Long Wharf is that this is a big collaboration throughout New Haven. And this is a 21 person cast. This is insane. So like, not only is the material like dynamic, you know, and challenging and gritty in all the right ways, but also the production aspects of aligning all of these people, getting all of these people together in the room to do a workshop has been a real exciting challenge. And the exciting thing about doing this in New Haven is that New Haven has a history of germinating some of our favorite musicals that are still part of like the American repertoire. So you think about all of the things that have been workshopped and incubated at the Shubert Theater. You're talking about the Oklahoma, you're talking about Sound of Music, you're talking about The King and I. These are pieces of musical history that we still think about. And, you know, the impetus in doing a work like Shimmer in New Haven is to help revitalize that tradition, which is really great. And it's been this wonderful collaboration between Yale Schwarzman Center, the Yale Ventures Innovation Summit, and community partners like Long Wharf.
And so speaking of this giant cast, the majority of the folks are going to be from New Haven, or a good portion of the folks are going to be. Was that deliberate? Was that intentional? What was the thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the talent in this city is overwhelming, right? The ability for us to pull from you know, the people who live here in the city who are able to participate, who are able to like come in and add their voices is just really unprecedented. And so we're combining the forces of, you know, New Haven residents with Yale undergraduates, Yale grad students, Yale faculty members, and just being able to show up over 2 weeks together to create this really incredible opportunity.
Oh, I'm excited by this because I love all the partners. I mean, I love all the partners in this. So it sounds like it's a chaotic but good chaotic stuff. Do you know what I mean? Bringing all these folks together and get everybody on one page. So,
Yeah,
so Anthony, when you're the librettist, what does that mean?
I'm not really the librettist. Michael Corey is the lyricist. I write the music. So don't ever put libretto next to my name as one of my things. I like other people to do that, because if I did it, it would be a different thing.
So you do the music, and are you walking with this music in you? Like, how do you sort of say, okay, I hear something for this particular piece of the story, I hear something for this piece of the story? What's your process?
All the time. I mean, I hear it in my head. I hear music in my head, and then sometimes I feel that when I'm composing, I'm really transcribing.
And so do you walk with a pen and paper with you all the time? Like, do you keep notes everywhere you go?
Not necessarily, but some people do that, but I try to, if it's good, usually I remember it. You know, so when it's a time to write it down. And for me, it's go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
For me, it's all nostalgia come back, because I lived in New Haven from '69 to '77. When I first came to New Haven, it was the Bobby Seale trial.
Oh
And
man.
I was a monitor for the Black Panthers. You know, I was out there in the green trying to help so the demonstrators didn't get killed by the National Guard. So it's really fun for me to be back in New Haven because it's sort of the beginning of how I became a musician and composer. So
Hmm. And does it feel very different? Like, do you feel like when you're on the green and when you're in New Haven now, does it feel far away from that particular
it doesn't
time?
feel that different. There's some new things, there's some different things, but it you know the Yale's been here a long time, and it's been a great place to develop, you know, to develop your ideas, to become an artist. And I think, you know, you see that with Francis too. You know, it's like people come here because they have ambition and they want to be able to get to the next level, and then you take your ideas from New Haven to other places. So the idea of developing musicals, that history, but also developing artists. New Haven has an incredible history for that.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's something that we've just recognized. And, I think it's being more and more nationally recognized as well. With the New York Times calling out New Haven as one of the top places to be because of its art and architecture. I mean, that should make us so proud, like we have this, we are set up to be a cultural hub that everyone kind of across the country, really across the world, gets to recognize, is that like great art starts here, great art thrives here. And Shimmer is just one example of that artistic impulse happening in the city.
I, I I love this concept so much because Francis, and you too, Anthony, that the American theater is reckoning with itself. It's reckoning with itself around equity and inclusion. Broadway for the last season or so has been very black. Like black stuff has shown up, black and queer stuff has shown up.
Yeah.
And so, but the American theater audience is being challenged because there's a little bit of pushback because it used to be very old and white. It's still kind of old and white, but that population is going to be shrinking, and theaters are wrestling with how do we tell different stories, same stories, new audience, current audiences. How do we find our way through all of that? And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I
Well,
so
go ahead, Francis.
and I'm gonna kick it over to you, Tony, because I know you've got incredible perspective on this. But for me, we're at an inflection point. You're seeing, we came out of the pandemic and the murder of George Floyd, with such passion about fixing these systemic issues, but all we've done so far is open up the conversation. Because really what we have to do is we have to examine kind of everything that Sarah was talking about. It's like whose voice do we actually get to hear and why? And because of that, it's not going to just be a re-examination of the types of stories we program, but it's going to be a re-examination of the financial structures with which we compensate artists, the ways in which we program, our relationship to the work itself and who owns it. And we're perfectly primed to do that at this point. And it's like you said, Babz, it's going to be it's going to have to be such an intentional conversation if we're actually going to make meaningful systemic change. And I think that we're set up to do it. Now we'll just see if we can actually follow through and make that conversation happen.
Mm.
But Anthony, I want to kick it over to you because I know you have lots of thoughts about, especially with your opera X going up at the Met this next year, an opera that
Yeah.
you wrote when 1986.
Yeah. My opera X, A Life of Times of Malcolm X, is going to be open at the Met November 3rd.
Oh my
And,
God, I need to get tickets. Can you hook me up? I want to go.
oh yeah, yeah. And it will be 8 performances between November and December, and that's very exciting. And about what Malcolm X means to the Black community, what he means to the
Yeah.
world, and to bring that on stage at the Met, I think is, that's I think a dynamic thing. It's I mean, people in the movement, you can't imagine Black Lives Matter without Malcolm X. But Malcolm X set the stage for for all, you know, a lot of the political thought of today. And so that's very exciting. And I always felt my music is always related to political topics. It's something that's been part of my musical approach, is because I think that music sometimes can be created at the it's also where culture collides too, you
Yes,
know. So
exactly.
then yeah, Shimmer is where the white musicals like Sondheim, let's say Bernstein, that tradition collides with the black musical. It
And
comes
it's
together.
Whoa.
unbelievable. And like in a world in which art influences culture and culture dictates policy, a musical like Shimmer is so necessary at this point. You know, because it challenges everything. It challenges, you know, the story challenges our perception of history. The music challenges the perception of what a musical is. You know, and like it's just such a perfect example of what art can do and speak to today.
Mm. So, Francis, do you concern yourself with getting it to Broadway? I mean, is that the ultimate measure of success if it gets to Broadway?
The ultimate measure is, see, here's the thing, is that I think that this show is going to speak so profoundly to Gen Z. I think that it's a musical set in 1940 with luminary authors who are, you know, just in their 60s and 70s. And I think it is going to be gripping to people who are in their 20s today because of how prescient it feels and how much it feels like, you know, people want to engage with exactly these topics. So, I mean, Broadway is one step, but as we had just discussed, you know, like Broadway has its own issues. And so after this workshop, what I see is this dynamic social media campaign in which we really get to introduce new audiences to this music and to a musical in a medium that they feel very comfortable with. So
Mm.
this is something that we can like take to Broadway, sure, and like will be very exciting, but we can tour it all over the country, all over the world. We can take it apart. We can make an album. We can put it on social media, and I'm very committed to engaging with all forms of audiences interacting with this piece.
So when you want to move this out of the workshop stage, do you have to attach big names to it? Like, how do you get people to notice it, to see it? Or do you concern yourself with that part? It's just like, I know where you begin. Where do you end?
Yeah, definitely. So there's conventional ways to do it, which would be to line up a production at an enhancement theater, you know, and really like put it on its feet. Because again, this workshop is really just singers in front of stands right now. And so we do need to put like the lights and the sets and the costumes with it, right? For its next step. And so like the traditionally what that would look like is you attach or you line up a production at an enhancement theater. You line up a commercial producer who's like thinking about all these things, like how do you take it to Broadway? How do you put it on tour? And then after that enhancement step, it would find its way to Broadway.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and so like those are kind of the big names that we're interested in courting right now.
Okay. So Anthony, so I imagine you sit in on the workshops, you're at the workshops and you're fine tuning, moving stuff around and playing with stuff and adding stuff. Is that exciting? Is that stressful? What is that like?
All the above. I know it's great. No, it's great. It's great. And I think, and also to make it theater, how, take it and you have music, but then, and you have words, you have dialogue, but how does it hang together as theater and how do you best tell the story? I mean, that's always the bottom line. And we're working with a fabulous director, Jess McLeod, who's incredible. And so it's a real collaboration. Yeah, and sometimes there's stress points. That happens. We all have different ideas. We're all strong personalities, so it's not that's part of the interesting thing. And I think that, but out of it, comes it's ideas come out of those sessions and those discussions. But we're all on this. We all want the same thing. All want the piece to tell the story and to be present and to be as powerful as it can be.
So for instance, doing the Midnight Oil Collective, is this your first big project or have y'all been doing projects and like what's the history?
Yeah, so the collective is 3 years old. And we've invested, so it's an investment system. You know, we like link ourselves together through contributing part of our project to a collective fund. And what's so brilliant about this is that, for instance, if Shimmer takes off and it becomes, Hamilton, right? Then by connecting it to the community, we part of that profit goes back to the community. So even projects that don't find the same success, ultimately those artists will not face the same economic realities of trying to push their work out there by themselves, right? So like the whole idea is like feed the starving artists, make sure that everyone has enough, make sure there's enough economic resource to go around. We've made investments into 10 projects at this point, which means that there are 10 members officially associated with the collectives. And it's everyone from musical theater writers like Anthony and Sarah, to filmmakers, to people writing for TV, to people who are doing like disruptive companies that are helping artists, get their work out there. And it's an incredible way to build a community, because we're building an ecosystem in which we're all supporting each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, like if Shimmer is not for everyone, it doesn't matter, because there is ultimately in our portfolio something for everyone.
So Anthony, you're working on this project. You got Opera X coming. What else you got going on? Because you seem quite busy. And is Opera X ready to go? Like, you're not still tinkering with it, are you?
Oh yeah, we're still tinkering. You always tinker. In fact, I'm working with the director Robert O'Hara on X, and we have dance rehearsals in June, in the middle, in 2 weeks. So I have to go there, and I know that's changing. It's gonna be, we did a production at Detroit Opera and Opera Omaha before in preparation for the Met, but the Met's a whole nother thing. It's a bigger thing.
Yeah, it's the Oscars of production houses, right? Like, and
we have an Afro-futurist approach to the opera. So I would say that. So that there's going to be some and I had to put something in the opera that suggests the Afro-futurist aspect. So
I love that.
that.
That's a big deal right now. Like, people are talking about that like Black people are going to be in the future. Like, we're going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And in the future, I'm doing another opera, a children's opera called Pancho Rabbit and the Coyote. That's about the border. I live in California, so it's we were talking about the migrant workers and immigration and the wall, but in the context of all animal characters and kind of a children's opera. But in a way, it's kind of like Animal Farm or something like that.
Okay, so I love the fact that I'm going to be talking to some folks tomorrow about Shimmer, which I'm excited that this is a two-part conversation, because I often find that I there's more to talk about from other perspectives and other parts of this moving big piece. But Francis, tell me what is the most exciting thing about this? Like, what get you up in the morning about this particular piece?
I want to see how I want to see what it does in the world. I want to see who is excited by it. I want to see who is challenged by it. I want to see like what type of waves it starts to make. I think it's already because it is such a fusion of politics and different music ideas and challenging the genre of musical theater, like it's already stretching us a lot. But because of that, all of a sudden you're seeing a potential that hasn't been there before. And I think that as audiences start to engage it, what you're going to see is people being challenged and being asked to really see the world in a different way. And it's so New York. I mean, I think that's what's so brilliant about this piece, is that you're gonna start to see people ask questions about places and spaces that I think that we have very codified narratives around. And so I, as someone who's had like a hand in the production of this, am so excited to see where people get excited, where people are frustrated, and kind of start to engage in those conversations very publicly.
So Anthony, when people engage you to write some music, And I know that's not an easy thing because I'm sure you're not that accessible. Like I can't call you up and say, you know what, can I have a piece of music for something? So I know that doesn't happen that way. But when somebody seriously wants your time and attention, do they send you a book? Do they send you a script? Like how do they get you involved?
Yeah, sometimes they do. That's what they do. When I did Central Park 5, it was funny. I was talking with this company about another project, and he asked me to read this script to see if I could recommend a composer to write music for this with this libretto. And the libretto was so I got this libretto for Richard Wesley. That was Central Park 5, the first draft of that. And so I read it, and I went back to the producer and I said, I want to do it. Because it so spoke to me. I said, this subject matter is right. It should be told. It's something that's really important. So I ended up being, the opera Central Park 5.
I love it. I so appreciate y'all taking the time to talk to me this morning. This is such one, it was fun, and two, very, very exciting. I'm gonna be there for the workshop,
Great.
be in the space. So I can't wait. First of all, I'm a musical junkie, so I like a good musical. And then you add in all the parts that y'all added. I that alone makes me excited to see it. Just how all the social justice stuff and all that. I was like, oh, how are they gonna do it? I want to see this now. So I'm excited. So thank you both.
Come say hello.
I absolutely will, Mr. Davis. And I absolutely will, Ms. Pollock. I appreciate y'all for spending the time with me this morning.
Yes, thank you so
Thank you.
much. And
Thank
we're
you
going to
so
see
much.
you again tomorrow. So we look forward to continue the conversation.
Yes. So what conversation tomorrow?
Great.
I look forward to it. So thank y'all. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay.
And I'll see
Thank
some of
you.
y'all tomorrow.
So long.
Thank y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. So, all right, Nora, thank you for riding shotgun. Harry, get some rest. Take it easy. Stay off your feet or get on your feet. And do all the right things. Thank you, Paul, for a great word on the street. I'll be back tomorrow with more from Shimmer. I'm excited. I hope you are too. All right, y'all. I'll see you later.